Hello and welcome to this BCS Future Elite session where we will share two speakers' career journeys into product ownership. My name is John Edwards and I'm delighted to welcome Bob Holt, Product Principal at Covea Insurance in Halifax, and Stephen McKay, Product Owner for Morrison's Grocery Stack in Bradford. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation, so do please jot down anything you want to ask into the chat function in your GoToWebinar control panel as we hear the speakers, and we'll deal with as many as we have time for before we close the session at 7 o'clock. So I'll hand over now to our first speaker. Welcome, Bob Holt.
Hi, how are we doing? I can't see the, there we go, that's the one. Just waiting for the button to pop up that says I'm allowed to share my screen. Here we go. Let's skip to this. Oh, sneak preview. Welcome everyone. So I'm Bob Holt. I'm newly appointed as product principal at Covea. I've been working at Covea for 15-16 months as a lead product owner. I just want to going to use today to talk a little bit about my journey into product, what I've learned, and some of the well, I'm going to pose a question for you, I guess at the end. So here we go. So I'm by background, I have had a huge variety of different roles. So at university, I studied maths. I went to University of York, did maths, and then straight out of there, I worked for the Citizens Advice Bureau. So did some work in the charity sector. We started picking up some public service contracts, and at different points during my time, I worked in different places in the charity sector, culminating in delivering some projects for the government. So worked on some NHS complaint services for the NHS. And my last role before moving into product, I was working for the School Food Trust, which was a non-government body, or a quango, that was set up in response to Jamie Oliver's school food program. It's starting to give you an idea of how old I am. And then in 2010, when David Cameron come into government and said, "Oh, we need a bonfire of quangos. We've got too many people just doing talking in and around government." I got made redundant, and at that point, I found myself moving into my first role in digital. So not a product owner at that point. My first role was as first couple of roles really were project managers in digital agencies. So I worked at a place called 9XB in Halifax and an agency in Leeds called 26, working with a wide range of different customers, different partners, including Bright House, Ford, garden centers, so big and small companies alike. But I always used to kind of cause trouble. One of the things that is kind of been common throughout my career was just me kind of just niggling away. I was always well liked and well supported by my managers, and I'm a nice guy. I'm easy to work with, so it was never a performance issue, but there was always something that was niggling away. And especially working as a project manager, I was rubbish. I I was a rubbish project manager. But annoyingly for my manager, my clients love me. And there's one example that really kind of sticks in my mind. I was on a call to a client, chatting away. We were bouncing ideas off of each other, and I was just like, no, you don't want to do that. That's a really stupid idea. Definitely don't want to do that. Let's go and do something different. I kind of hung up, come off the call, and my line manager, who sat opposite me, she looked at me and she said, "Do you know, for a minute I thought you were talking to a client, but then you called them stupid, so you can't be." And I was just like, "No, I was talking to Colin, and um, this is and this is why." And the problem was that I was rubbish at a project manager because I didn't accept what people were asking for is what they needed. I was interested in how we actually solve their problems. How okay, so you're asking for a website, but what does that website need to do? It doesn't need to just look pretty. It's got a function and a purpose. Are we trying to do client acquisition? Do you need to sell through it? If we're selling through it, how effectively do we sell? And what I found was I kind of accidentally fell into this really valuable role. At the time, I didn't know what it was, but I started digging around more. Business analysts didn't didn't quite fit. I definitely wasn't a project manager. You could rule out kind of account management. I wasn't a salesperson. But I definitely had this skill set that was like, actually, I want to use the creativity, the excitement, the knowledge that I have. I want to help you solve really important problems, and that was what product allowed me to do. So since then, I've worked in a couple of startups. I've worked in some large corporations. Prior to working for Conveyor, I was working at Sky, and working on the Sky News product, and I love that. I'm completely passionate about my time at Sky News. Doing product there, I was able to over a couple of years double audience and uh, drive significant increases in revenue. So did all these great things, built good products. If anybody doesn't like the Sky News website, it's probably my fault. For that, I apologise. But outcome based, huge success, really successful product. Had some ups and downs, but I was now in a role where I'm like, my natural helpful side, my natural curiosity, um, was able to really help me drive big kind of outcome changes for people, but I still cause trouble. And those behaviours I had about asking why, curiosity around what I want to do, about why are we doing this? What is the problem we're solving? What do our customers actually want in here? Um, I still cause a lot of trouble because I don't do what I'm told. I think you could speak to any of my managers and they would probably say, like a school report card, "Oh yeah, no, Bob's lovely, brilliant, great to get along with, but he says why too much." And it's no accident that Start With Why is one of my favorite kind of business books. I'm really kind of super passionate about understanding from first principles how we make change and drive change through the delivery of work in product. Um, but this causing trouble thing has it's not gone away. It's there. I'm now doing a job I love, whereas previously I was doing good work, um, and but ultimately frustrated. And in product, I found something I was really passionate about and really valuable. And I personally value that opportunity to do all of that really good work. Um, but I struggled with that. Why am I still getting in trouble? I read all the books about what product is and what product should be, and I'm doing all this good work, and I'm coming to you and I'm going, okay, look, I understand you want this new feature, but our customers are saying this. Okay, I can test your idea, but the real problem is this. Let's go and solve the real problem. And I realized that the root cause of my decision there in terms of what we do is do I want to progress by doing what I'm told? Um, and I look at this, and I looked at people that have progressed into very senior product roles very quickly, and you look at it and you go, why is that not me? I'm brilliant at this. I look back at my product CV, and I've got successful products, successful innovation, improved outcome here, made a great difference here. I've worked with some great clients. I've worked with worked on some brilliant products with very senior people with very large budgets. There's nothing technically holding me back in my career apart from this one thing, which is I don't want to progress by doing what I'm told. You know, I think there's a real temptation, a real opportunity for people, especially people doing kind of product ownership in large enterprise organizations, to take that route. And I'm not gonna not gonna judge. I'm not gonna call it the easy route. But you can progress by doing what is asked for. Oh, you want a feature? We can add that feature. I'll get it onto the backlog. Um, you can take the opportunity to just heap the pressure on the teams to deliver. No, next, next, next. You can get involved in that kind of playing of politics. Making sure that nothing reflects bad on you. But I know that's not me, and a lot of advice I've had over the years has been, oh, if you want to progress, that's the kind of stuff that you need to do. And I'm like, no, that's wrong. That's not me. I'm not doing that. Um, I've actively chosen to progress by building good product. And as soon as I realised myself that this is a decision that I'm making, and I've got a set of principles, I've become less frustrated. So those times when I'm like, why have you hired that person and not me? Right? I can do that job so much better. Those times when you're like, those negative thoughts can really get into you, get into your head and make you kind of doubt yourself. The moment I realized I've made a conscious decision to be a bit awkward about my job, um, to make sure that I craft my process and understand how I go about building good product, how I make sure that regardless of the circumstances, I know my customer needs, right? Make sure that the teams that I'm working with, I try my hardest to give them room to do good work. Make sure that I'm building relationships with stakeholders and with customers, and bringing kind of developers and testers and other members of the team closer into understanding the problem that they're trying to solve, how they can add value to the customer. How I make sure that the research happens, and I do that hard work to make sure that the problems we're solving are ones worth solving, not just an idea that somebody's had because they saw it somewhere else and we're just going to copy that feature. As soon as I realized that this was was initially an unconscious decision I was making, and made that a conscious decision, I started to be a lot more certain about myself and my direction and what was happening in my career. And instead of chasing promotion, I started to chase opportunity. where can I go and make a difference was much more important to me than where can I go and get a nice job title. Just want to kind of close up by kind of saying, you know, this comes with no judgment. You know, it's that conscious decision I made was something that I needed to do because I couldn't understand why I was such an awkward bugger to manage at work, but was still just a nice person. You know, managing that dichotomy, right? If you want to choose to take the path that goes, no, I'm going to do this properly. I'm going to build really, really good product. It's a hard path. You know, it's not an easy route. It will put you in situations where you are uncomfortable and in conflict with management and stakeholders, because you have to fight for every bit of room to take a bit longer in research, to do all of that extra work to bring stakeholders along with decisions about why you are not going with their first idea and how it's evolved into something else, and fight for the resources for kind of user testing and those kind of things. It means it takes you longer than you'd probably like to progress in your career, because the opportunities to be awkward and get promoted are fewer than the opportunities to be pliant and promoted. And you know, that's, as far as I can see, that's a fact of the workplace. So this story, it comes with no judgment. I'm just sharing a little bit about what I've done. What I would say is I love working in product, and I love doing product properly. I love building product teams and supporting and mentoring product owners to do really good product, do really good product work, to get really close to customers, understand what they are doing, and I'm going to continue down that path, even at a time. I'm currently going through this now at Conveyor, even at a time when the need to deliver and the pressure to meet some certain milestones down our roadmap is really heaping on. I'm going down a path of going, actually, I want to take time. I want people to have room. And it does annoy people. I know it annoys people, but it annoys people from a position of good and a position of strength. So thank you for listening, and I wish you all the best with whatever decision you make around your career. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for your very personal and really quite disarming account of your path to product principal. There are lots of good questions coming in, and I'll ask you to address some of them after we've heard Stefan. In the meantime, Stefan, can I introduce you? If you can turn your camera back on.
Yep, that should be here now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Bob. We'll come back to you shortly, but for the moment, Stefan, the screen is yours. Thank you.
Share my screen. Am I showing the correct screen here, or?
Yep,
Let me have a look. That one there. Are we all good now? Are we on the right screen?
It's all yours, Stefan. Thanks.
Amazing. Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to my portion of this presentation today. I guess thank you, Bob, as well, for setting a really good tone there. I'll loop back to a couple of the points that you made in your piece around where you've got to today as well. I want to just kick off with, I guess, what I want you to take away from today from me is that in my career, I've always followed the fun. And I've always seen a career as not just something that pays the bills, but something that I want to do to enjoy. After all, we do spend a lot of our lives working, so I've always made sure I try to enjoy what I'm doing. A quick introduction to me then. So John obviously introduced me before. I'm Stephen McKay. I am a technology product owner for Morrisons, and I look after what I'd class now as a series of products as opposed to just an individual product that enables Morrisons to sell groceries online. It's grown exponentially over the past 12 months, as I'm sure you can imagine. And we now sell goods online across the entirety of the UK. Not quite anywhere outside of the UK yet, despite the fact us having a store in Gibraltar. But we do serve the whole of the UK now. And I look after components, services, adapters, data feeds, anything in that kind of world that enables all the way from a customer placing an order online to the customer receiving an order at their door. I don't, however, look after the website itself or any of our customer-facing applications or anything like that. So it's the technologies in the middle. I've put my email address at the bottom there, which I'm happy for you to all have. If you've got questions after today's event as well that you've got for me, then feel free to ask them away. So the contents of mine are a little bit less of a story today, but more a little bit about me, a little bit about my career, and some really helpful things that I've remembered at various stages of my career so far, and why Follow the Fun has been kind of the premise of it so far. And then I've just got a few general tips for product owners at the end as well, which you may or may not agree with. We'll see about that at the end, I guess. So a little bit about me, because I'm not my role. I am also a person outside of that role. And the four things that I'd class as probably most important to me. So the first one being family. The two people that you see in that picture with me there are my two older sisters, and they are part of why I strive to be better than I am today every single day. They're both very successful and both always very inspiring to me, and I spend as much time at least keeping up with them as I can outside of work. Skiing is very important. However, obviously there's not been a lot of that over the past 12 months. You may all remember, or those of you who have been close to the past 12 months, you may remember last March when Italy went into lockdown. I had got to Italy a day before them going into full lockdown to go skiing there, and got shipped out of the country and I had to escape. So that was all good fun. Gaming, you may all see that I've got this crazy microphone and headset and stuff. I've got all of the gear for gaming, pretty much no idea. And then traveling as well, much like skiing. Not a lot of that is going on at the moment. But anyway, the bit that you're all kind of here for today is to learn a little bit more about my journey, where I've got to today, and what the steps are that have led up to that. So I will be going all the way back to when I was at university, because I think I learned a lot about my time at university that has probably factored into my job as a product owner today, despite what I did at university probably not being that relevant in terms of I did physics at the University of Salford, and I'll come back to that shortly. I then progressed into managing a convenience store. I've put a little letter symbol there because it was also a post office. And a lot of that got me into my role in terms of retail. I had absolutely zero plans to be in retail until I moved into that convenience store management role. I then decided that I wanted a proper role, or a proper role at the time, because that convenience store that I managed was actually a family business, and I just got transferred the reins. And to me, I didn't want to just get stuck in the family business. I wanted to go and do something else. So I joined Morrisons, and I joined on a graduate scheme at that point, which was probably the best decision of my life so far, mostly because it's what's got me to where I am today, really. I'm still at Morrisons, and that was back in 2014 that I joined the company. Since joining that graduate scheme, I've had a variety of roles, and the reason I've had a variety of roles is because I wouldn't necessarily say I get bored, but I'm always looking for the next thing that I can do that I'll find enjoyable, and I really enjoy learning. So once I've learned to roll and once I've done a lot of stuff, I've done a lot of moving along. So I ended up being a social media manager for a bit and looking after all of our Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat at the time, and YouTube, all of them good things. From there, I worked alongside our search engine optimization and content team, and decided that what they did sounded really fun too. So I decided to go and move to their team to find out a little bit more about what they do. And I think this is it's a really good opportunity to call out that this was the first time that I found a role that I was extremely passionate about. And I think it was probably the first time that I moved away from a role, when I did move away from this role, that I was probably moving a little bit away from a passion for experience to progress, as opposed to following the fun. So a little bit away from my actual title there, but I absolutely love search engine optimization, or what encompasses that world, and I still do to this day, and I use a lot of what I learned in that role in product ownership too. I then moved into my first proper product role, which was what I'd refer to today as a product manager role of various digital products at Morrisons. Between moving into it as a junior and then getting promoted into a more senior position in the team, I pretty much looked after at any one point every single one of our websites, and we've got a lot of websites with millions of customers flowing through them every single day. So there's lots of responsibility there. And that was between the years of about 2018 to 2020, where we were doing a lot of digital transformation at Morrisons. And then I decided to step into a more technology focused role at the start of last year, so at the start of 2020. I moved into being a technology product owner. It's probably been the most difficult year of my life so far, and I'll go through that very shortly as well, as to why that's the case. But obviously last year, everyone moved to shopping online, and because I look after all of the systems that enable people to shop online, it's been a hectic year of auto scaling and ridiculous prioritization decisions based on, we want to do everything, but we've only got so much resource and time to do it. And it's been a very, very interesting past 12 months. So what I wanted to do now was kind of just go through probably the bits that I learned within each of these roles that loop into a little bit of the world or the work that I do today as a product owner. So I've got a few tips here of things that you might listen to, or things that you just completely disregard, and I'm comfortable either way really, but these are what I've held true to me through my career so far from the various stages of it. So university was one which was the first place I realized that I want to do what I love, not just what people want me to do. I'm probably not as good as Bob in this area, because I originally went to Edinburgh to do maths and I dropped out, and it sounds like he stuck with maths. I realized I didn't love maths. I think people just assumed I would do maths because both my parents loved it. So I dropped out and I did physics instead at a different university. And it's really important to do the things that you want to do, not necessarily do the things that others think you should be doing. And in product ownership, that's really important. You're supposed to be there to deliver value to your customers, not just do what other people think you should be doing with that product, including your stakeholders, who might be CEOs or whatever they might be. You're there to do the things that you're supposed to be doing, I guess. Analyze the data. So I guess it doesn't come as a surprise that as doing physics, I learned a lot about analyzing data to make sure you make the right decisions. I think a lot of people, similar to the last point, end up just doing stuff off a hunch. But instead, I think it's really important to go away and look into stuff and make sure you do what the data is telling you to do at a lot of points. It really helps you prioritize your backlog. And success isn't always serious. I think a lot of people forget their time at university in terms of they were successful whilst having a good time. And I've always kept that through my career. I'm relatively silly sometimes, but then at university I got a good degree and I was silly at that point too. So it's good to remember that success and a successful product doesn't have to be a serious, everything's really serious product. Moving on to my next role, and this one's always controversial given that I'm in retail, and I think it was Tesco, someone at Tesco, I think, that originally said the customer's always right. I disagree. I think the customer isn't always right. I think customer research is very important, and asking customers what they want from you is very important. But what they want might not necessarily always be the right thing for all of your customers, and it might not necessarily be the right value to deliver as well. And the other thing that I learned whilst I was running that post office is that working hard does pay off. And I don't think working hard always translates to putting in a lot of hours. But I put in a lot of hours whilst I was running that store, and it really did pay off. We did a lot of range changes. We completely refit the store. We did everything we possibly could to increase sales. And during the time that I was there, which was just a couple of years, we increased sales by 10 times, which was definitely paid off. So moving into the graduate scheme and my actual career at Morrison's then, and I think this is one that a lot of people struggle with, is that a decision that they may make might be wrong. I think in the world of product, you're likely to make decisions that are wrong. You're likely to do things that might not quite give you the outcome that you were expecting. And it's really important to have a strong back to both accept that you're wrong. So you may have pushed your stakeholders that what you want to do is right, and you may have to own up to the fact that your decision was wrong. Sorry. And also to move on from them wrong decisions, move on to the next decision, the next priority, the next thing that you have determined will deliver value. Because it's a world where resilience is really important, I've found. And then similar to that last one, I think something that I've done a lot, and kind of looping back into Bob's points around causing trouble, is ask for forgiveness, not permission. Now, not on everything you do. Don't take this as gospel, as you should never ask for permission to do anything. But I think that it's a really important point to make around sometimes it may take too long to ask for permission, or asking for permission may always come out with a no, depending on who those are that you'd ask for permission from. And you will learn a lot about doing something, and sometimes it fails, and that's the times you have to beg for forgiveness. A lot of the time it's successful, and you would never have thought about it. So my time in social media was beneficial to me today, because I think it really helped me look for things to do where you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And the social media world, you can see everything that your competitors are doing out there. It's that they're putting the things out there that they're doing. So when you're running the social media accounts, you're constantly trying to churn creative ideas out there, and you can only be so creative yourself. I think it's really important to go and look at your competitors, find out what they're doing, do competitor research, analysis, because that may give you your next best idea, or you may look at what they're doing and see that their customers absolutely hate it, and that may stop you from just copying your competitors too, or doing something where you spend a load of money, put a load of budget into it, where someone's already tried it and failed. Maybe it's not the right thing to do. So go and do your competitor analysis. A bit in contrast to the last one, great to look at your competitors for ideas. Don't just copy what others do. I think being unique, both in your product and having a unique selling point, is a valuable thing to have, but in yourself as well. So within your careers, give yourself a personality, be yourself. Don't just copy what others are doing. Don't just act in a certain way just because you think you have to. Just be yourself. Have a laugh. If you're a little bit silly, be silly, because people will remember you as you then, not just remember you as kind of a cog. And this was the role that I referred back to before, where I probably learned more out of this than anything. People form habits, and that's kind of shown in that graph at the top there, which is a depiction of the Google Trends for strawberries, which obviously that peak every single year is around about Wimbledon, and everyone goes off and looks for strawberries. Your ideas can quite often come from the past, and forming a bit of a roadmap of activity around products or marketing or whatever it might be is quite easy when you look at how people have searched or what people have trended to do in the past as well. And that really starts to paint a picture of what you might want to do through the next 12 months, for instance, or how you want to market your product, or how do you want to go away and improve the product for certain periods of the year. And then the journey is as important as the goal. I think when you're in big business, you get a lot of stakeholders who want to deliver the goal, and they want to deliver the goal today or yesterday in some scenarios. Morrison's is a very fast-paced environment, and people want to do stuff yesterday. But it takes me, and it takes some of my peers as well, to remind people that the journey to that goal, that end goal, their big thinking point, is just as important as getting to that goal. I've put a little kind of representation of a content kind of map, or a customer purchasing journey there. But that would absolutely translate into product and product acquisition, or whatever it might be that you're looking after, is that customers don't just go to that green point of purchase. They've got a whole host of things that they go through before that goal of purchase. And then even after that goal of purchase, there is things that you need to do to keep them around. You want to retain them, and you want them to then sell your product to others, so that others go on this journey too. And that entire journey of customer is important, but also your journey to getting to the goal, that big thinking strategic idea, is just as important. So now the next two roles, I guess my points around these two roles are more around you, or kind of not necessarily product ownership, but you and in your role or in your team. And I learned a lot when I was a digital product manager that team is everything. It's probably the best team I've ever worked in. And when I was going to work during that period, it didn't feel like work at all. I put in lots of hours, but because I really loved it. I loved everything that I did, because my team around me were incredible. We all had good rapport. We had each other's backs. Everyone mucked together to get each other's value delivered, not just our own. And that was probably the most fun that I've ever had at work, even though I worked more hours than I've ever worked before in my life as well. And it's really important to build teams around you that you enjoy spending time with, because what you will do with your work will be 100% better than in a role that you're all a little bit transactional with each other. I think you get a lot out of people when you build in some emotion to your teams as well. And I won't say much more on this one, but we worked hard and we played hard. So as a team, we used to make sure we celebrated our successes. We would go out for drinks, which we can't do much of at the moment, but you can have a Zoom call right now to celebrate successes, and you can all do what you want on each end and have a good laugh. But making sure we celebrated success and celebrated each release or each deliverable or whatever it might be, so that work wasn't just work was actually fun. And then the other thing, which is a bit of a flip on the above two, is that I learned a lot at this point that being a product manager, you are almost a business owner. Some people actually say you are basically owning a business when you're managing a product. And this isn't to scare anyone away from being a product manager or a product owner, whatever the difference might be there. But it's a tough old gig. You are expected to know a lot. You're expected to look after a lot. And there's a lot of pressure resting on you in roles like this, because you're there to deliver as much value against a generally reducing budget in a lot of people's areas, out of a product. And that might be you are looking after the marketing of that product as well, or you are looking after the details, you're looking after the strategy. You're almost the full stack of a team in your one role, and a little bit accountable for a lot of it. So it's not for the faint-hearted, is what I'd suggest that I learned in that role. And then now to my current role, and these are little things, again, that you might take away as useful or not, but learnings that I think are valuable. So document on the way. I've been in this role for just over 12 months now, and last year was incredibly busy, and you will get busy periods of time. And it's really important to remember that working agile, working fast, or working hasty, I guess, doesn't mean dropping really important parts of the process, and documenting what you're doing and what you're building and what you're delivering to customers and making sure that's understood for the next generation is absolutely not one of the things that you should drop. I have to admit, over the past year, we have in some cases dropped this, and we're just catching back up now, and I regret it massively. And I don't have a lot of regrets in my life, so make sure you stick to documenting things and writing things down, because people come and go. You get in an agile world a lot of people that become absolute know-it-alls on certain things, subject matter experts, but you need to make sure that those people are also writing everything down, making sure that everything's shared amongst lots of people. And you need to also remember that you don't want to get attached to individuals. So it's great to go back and think of that team point I mentioned before, but everyone's out here building careers and changing roles, and in an agile environment, people are becoming more agile and mobile and moving around roles. You need to make sure you protect against that. And then another thing that's a learning for me from the past year is look after number one, which is yourself. It's a busy old world, and there's a lot of pressure, and business will happen regardless of how many hours you put into it. So make sure you're looking after yourself as you're going through your role. A couple of just tips from me now, just to kind of that didn't really fit into my other bits there, but some things that I've learned over the past probably 4 years of my life that I try to remember in everything that I do. Terminology. Every single business has different terminology for things, and this world of product ownership and agile and all of that kind of stuff, a lot of people look over at the Spotify world. I think Spotify published lots of stuff quite a few years ago now on how their organization fits together. Most organizations won't work with that way, and don't get too hung up on that when you're going into roles or businesses. It's good to push for new ways of working and new ways of talking about things, but don't get hung up on it. Challenge, so harking back to the being a troublemaker thing, I think as a product owner, you should be a bit of a troublemaker. It's your job to deliver value, like I've put there, not to deliver what other people want you to deliver. You're looking at making sure that your customers are getting the most out of your product as they possibly can. So you're an enabler, but you're also sometimes a blocker, and you have to have the ability to say no or ask why, or really push back on requests. The 80% rule. I'm a perfectionist, but you can never get perfection, and oftentimes when you're looking for perfection, your customers have moved on to something else anyway. So I think you should always strive for perfection, but settle for done. And the 80% rule tends to be, and a lot of people don't like this, but 80% of the value can often be delivered by 20% of the work. Flipping it around, 20% of the remaining value might take up 80% of the time. And then just enjoy yourself. You'll deliver more value if you're enjoying yourself. If you're stressed and hating your job, you probably won't put in as much passion to it, and you won't be delivering the right value. So make sure you're enjoying what you do. So a bit of a recap. There's a little bit about me, a bit about my career following the fun, and then just some general tips and advice as well there. Thank you. And any questions that you've sent through now as well?
Thank you, Stefan. That was fantastic. Can I welcome Bob back as well? And we'll have a look at some of the questions that have come through in the remaining quarter of an hour or so of the webinar. Here's one for you, Stefan. Forgive me, I've lost it. Yes, in the maelstrom of the last year, how did you find the prioritization in terms of what guided it? Was it by measured objective criteria, or was it by more subjective feel?
I have to admit that we've been very reactive over the past 12 months, which I'm sure a lot of people have been very reactive over the past 12 months. We always want to be proactive in what we're doing and have a roadmap, but I actually reviewed our 2020 roadmap again the other day, and I looked at it, and we probably delivered one of about 50 things that was on that original roadmap last year, one of them. So yeah, it was a really reactive time over the past year. What we ended up doing in terms of prioritization was, I set up a Now, these aren't always good things to do, but I set up a bit of a product council with all of my stakeholders, which was a weekly session for us to discuss where are we at, what are the current things that are going on in the world, with every single one of my stakeholders to kind of chip in to make sure that we were prioritizing things effectively and taking in every single person's input to that. We've probably interrupted a lot more sprints with last minute things as well over the past year, but almost all of them have come from customer sentiment. We've had a crack team of people who have been constantly monitoring customer sentiment over the past year, and we've had another team who've been working with the government on the various changes that are going to come in as well, and that kind of gets spread to the whole business to kind of make some tweaks as to what we're doing. So there's been lots of last minute things. We've definitely use data a little bit less in some of those, but there's only so much you can actually do in the time you've got.
Thank you for that. There's two questions that tie together. One has relates to, in particular, your year, Stefan, but for both of you, I can imagine, says Rebecca, that your role has been very stressful, particularly this year. How do you manage stress and process it? And another question, Ramesh, says, how do you handle the challenges on the job when things don't go well? Do you have support? Bob, can you take that first?
Yeah. Do you know what that question I don't think has ever been more relevant than this year. This year is, or it's not even this year anymore, is it? Last year was the first time that I ever really had to personally recognize that my mental health might be a thing that I need to look after. So, talking to Stefan's point about making sure you look after yourself, there was a point, I think going into kind of second lockdown, and realized that you were just stuck with it's more just drudgery, and just kind of took you kind of once you grabbed hold of that, kind of acknowledged that there's an issue there, you can start to kind of get some support in and around there. A few things that I would absolutely advocate for. Make sure you've got some people that you can just let off steam with safely, because more than ever you need it. And with there not being people around, you're not being in that office space, you've not got that opportunity to just randomly talk about something completely different because you've gone to get a coffee, right? So make sure you've got that opportunity. Slack's great. Join a couple of the more social Slack channels and chat some rubbish. Is great on a day-to-day. Grab some. Make sure you've got some support where you can go and talk things through properly as well. It's important that you can talk rubbish, but make sure you've got. If your line manager's not that person, absolutely seek out a good mentor that you can kind of talk to. And I think the biggest thing that I realized in terms of that was just the power of fresh air and exercise. So being out. So before lockdown, I was in the gym every morning, lifting sillily heavy things and pushing even more heavy things across the floor. That's gone from my life at the moment. But what I have replaced it with is those opportunities. I look at my calendar, I'm like, right, I can do them on the phone. I don't need a screen. I'm gonna stick my Bluetooth earpiece in, go and do it on the phone, and go for a walk, get some air, and that's it. And to Stefan's point, look after yourself. Do all that good advice that people tell you to do is work. Sleep well, drink plenty of water.
I actually echo pretty much everything that Bob's just said there. I did hit a breaking point almost, was it last September? And since then I've made sure that, so one thing that I've done to just keep myself a little bit sane was go on a half an hour walk outside in the middle of my day. So find yourself half an hour in the middle of your day to just get away from being inside. to help split your day up. Everyone gets time for lunch. You should always get time for some lunch or some food or something that's away from your desk or away from your work. And splitting up your day helps you to kind of put your morning at rest, so that when you finish your day and you're going to sleep at night, your stresses that you might be going to sleep with are only your afternoon of stresses, not a full day's worth of stresses. So even simple things like that, just kind of splitting up your morning and afternoon, really important. And similar to what Bob said, I think having people around you that you can just have a bit of a rant to is very important. I think what we're doing, so over the past couple of months, we've been advocating kind of having 20 minutes of calls with someone that you like at work, one of your friends, which is you're having a coffee and you're having a chat and you're not allowed to talk about work, as though you've kind of gone to the coffee shop or gone out for a coffee with them. Obviously, you can't really do that right now, but it doesn't matter if you're filling some of your time up with things that aren't work. I think we've been just as productive from home as we were in the office in much less time, because in the office you do have a lot of space to have a conversation at the side of your desk. You walk past someone, you have a 5-minute catch up with them, you go to the coffee shop, all these little things that are actually work still. You're catching up with people from work and you're collaborating with people and you're meeting new people and stuff. Allow yourself time for that at home as well. I think a lot of stress is people putting pressure on themselves as I'm at home, someone's probably checking in on me and I'm not working. They're probably not checking in on you, and you probably wouldn't be working all the day if you're in the office, so don't worry about it too much. And I've had to teach myself a lot of that this past year.
Well, that's very understandable, and I have to say, from where we sit, not an unusual story. We have a good question from Drew. Do you have any advice on getting an organization to embrace product ownership rather than making engineering teams deal with lots of individual stakeholders? And another question that's a little bit like that: how do you deal with adamant and belligerent senior stakeholders? Bob, can you take those two?
Yeah. So if you want to accidentally become a product owner because you're an engineer in another role, keep asking why this and why now, and soon you'll find that you're doing it you're doing it by accident. The biggest advice I've got to starting kind of product ownership, or like starting to look at that kind of product led thing, is start small and make sure people understand that it's an experiment. So ask questions like, what if we treated these set of disparate bits of work that you're trying to get together as the product that they are, and start looking at how we would add value with that product. Just ask the question, what if? Start small. You almost don't need it's hard because you don't want to talk for organizations. I'm a firm believer that most people have a lot more leeway than they realize at work. And talking to the bit where you kind of say, oh yeah, ask for forgiveness, not permission. I think the flip side of that is, in large organizations, lots of people are empowered to say no. Not many people are empowered to say yes. So don't ask, just go, we're trying something. We're just looking at it. We're seeing what we can do. We actually think, instead of having these developers deal with these problems separately, there's value in them bundling that work up and considering it together. We're not asking you to employ a product owner. Somebody will do that. We'll find somebody to do that. Somebody who's curious and ask kind of questions. Or maybe it's find a business advocate who might not know what product owner is, but probably does the job anyway. If you start talking to people, you'll find support in that space. Belligerent stakeholders is an interesting one, because I'm always like, well, how belligerent? What I'm going back to why this, why now is a useful way of getting to the root cause of a problem, to understand where the piece of work has come from. The problem you've got is, if if they are belligerent enough to go, this is my idea, I want you to do it, you don't need to know why it works. There are people like that. There's not really a lot you can do until you can win over their trust, to understand that you are not there to make them look stupid. You're not there to say no. You're not there to stop them doing their job. You're there to help them. So belligerent stakeholders need to know that they can trust you first, I think is probably my best. It's different people, different kind of solutions, but I know from experience, asking people why winds them right up if you do it in the wrong way. So yeah.
I think it's on that belligerent stakeholders one. Sometimes you will have to do something that someone wants you to do before you can prove that that wasn't the right thing to do, and that, I think, analyzing and making sure you've got a good way of kind of showing the value that's delivered versus what you wanted to do. So if you manage to deliver what you wanted to do as well, and the value that each of them have then delivered might help you win in that trust in the future as well. Sometimes you might go into a role and you've got to earn trust, and in some scenarios you might want to deliver some things that do fail, and then that helps you prove that you kind of said, I don't think we should do this, or why do we want to do this? Okay, we're going to have to do it anyway. It didn't succeed. Here's what I did say it wasn't going to succeed. Here's why it's not succeeded. Here's the other thing that I wanted to do, and here's the value that we've delivered with that. You might just have to build up that rapport sometimes, and build up that kind of proof that you're doing the right thing for your product. And you are ultimately there. That I think a product owner is supposed to be accountable for the value that's delivered from the product. And in a lot of large organizations, are you really accountable as the product owner? I think a lot of people more senior than you would like to think that they're actually accountable in them scenarios. But you need to kind of prove that accountability. You're the one that's there to do the right thing by your product. Just takes a bit of getting to.
Just want to add one thing to that, because Stefan, what Stefan was saying is brilliant, is absolutely true. And I think the other bit that you need to be, I'd kind of suggest you're honest with yourself on is, are you being transparent about what you're doing? About, talking to Stefan said something about you're not always right, and so are you showing belligerence to belligerence? Is it just because it's not your idea, right? Check those behaviors, make sure you're being honest with yourself about what you're doing, and if you can be transparent in showing your work in, that can really help kind of ease through some of those conversations.
Thank you. Well, we're coming to the very close to the end, so in just 30 seconds, if this is remotely possible, two questions that are very similar. How do you go about handling requests from stakeholders for changing when you have a minimal delivery team only able to deliver so much? And when a customer or an internal customer comes to you wanting, quote, the moon on a stick, how do you follow the principle of minimal viable product? Stefan.
Everyone's obviously got different ways of working. We work in 2-week sprints, and we ensure we have something to release at the end of 2 weeks. So delivering the moon on a stick is probably not really going to happen in 2 weeks. So being able to break that down into something that's going to deliver some value is definitely your role with your product development team, or whatever your little product team looks like. That's absolutely your role to do. People will always come with big ideas, and you're there to kind of help the business nestle them down. What's going to help us deliver value? What can we deliver in the time we've got? Similarly, your smaller team, you may have a small team, but you can start to learn what the velocity of that team is quite quickly by working through some sprints. Your first ones you might be rubbish at estimating versus what you actually deliver, but eventually you start going through periods where you'll balance out and you'll get a nice flat line of, we estimated this much delivery, we delivered this much delivery. And once you've got them stats, you can start proving that this is how much we can deliver in this space of time. We know how much we can deliver. If you want more to be delivered in that space of time, we need more resource, and you start pushing questions back around like that. Or we need to be paid more for more hours. It depends on what it might be.
Bob, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I'm just going to pick up on the small team bit. That the biggest lie product owners tell to themselves and to stakeholders is, "I've put it on the backlog." Right? If you've got a team that's too small, if you've got a backlog that is longer than a month's worth of work, anything you add into the bottom of that, depending on the rate at which those requests come in, you're never going to get to. So face into those conversations, because it's a difficult conversation now versus a loss of trust for the future. And you're better off having a difficult conversation now than being kind of undermined or worked around in the future by stakeholders. So that would be my biggest advice: is if you know you're not going to get to it, say you're not going to get to it.
Honesty is the best policy.
Yep.
Thank you for that. We're out of time. So thank you for both our speakers for sharing some fascinating stories. There's a huge amount there for us all to take away. We'll share the recording in a day or so. And in the meantime, when you close your browsers, there will be a survey asking how we did and inviting your feedback. Do please give us your thoughts. But if you're in a rush, the link will follow in an email in an hour's time. On another note, the next events in our program are in partnership with Amazon Web Services, and rather than career events like this one, they have a technical focus. The first is on the 11th of March, data analytics on AWS, followed on the 18th of March by AI and machine learning on AWS. Details will follow with the recording of this session. Please just let us know if you'd like to attend. I hope you've enjoyed this session. Thank you to our speakers, Bob Holt and Stephen McKay. Thank you for attending, and goodbye.